In the blink of an eye, life can turn upside down. Michael, a 50-year-old architect in Chicago, saw his world crumble. An imminent divorce, a son in college, and a job that no longer inspired him pushed him to the abyss. A sudden layoff, which at first seemed like a sign to change everything, led him to an impulsive decision: opening a business without planning, investing all his savings. The result? On the brink of bankruptcy, plunged into an even deeper existential crisis. Michael found himself in the midst of the perfect storm, a reality many face but few understand before it's too late. This series will explore how the midlife crisis can intersect with a financial crisis, uncovering the dangers of acting without a plan during intense emotional periods and offering paths to restart with wisdom. Michael felt lost. The first few months after being laid off were euphoric, driven by the idea of finally being his own boss. Michael ignored the accumulating bills, hoping for a miracle that never came. He convinced himself that the next client would be the big contract, the turnaround that would get everything out of the red. But each day brought new frustration. His behavior became reclusive. He avoided social gatherings, afraid someone would notice the despair behind his forced smile. This isolation is a common symptom for those on the brink of bankruptcy, fueled by shame and fear of judgment. Data from the National Endowment for Financial Education indicates that shame is one of the biggest obstacles for people seeking financial help, perpetuating the crisis cycle. Michael was trapped in the cycle, not knowing where to begin to untangle it, but reality quickly set in. The business, an innovative design consultancy, attracted no clients. Constant headaches, stomach pains, and persistent fatigue. His body was screaming for help, reflecting the unbearable pressure his mind endured. He knew something had to change, but the fear of failing again, of admitting he had made a colossal mistake, paralyzed him. His savings, which should have lasted at least a year, dwindled in a few weeks with unexpected expenses. Insomnia became his nightly companion, and the bank's email alert about his overdraft limit was a constant reminder of the hole he was digging for himself. He refused to tell his friends or his ex-wife, Sarah, about the true state of his finances, maintaining a facade of success that only increased his torment. According to an AARP study, over 40% of Americans between 50 and 64 report significant financial problems, often exacerbated by impulsive decisions during periods of great stress. The cost of living in the United States, especially in large urban centers like Chicago, makes any financial misstep a dangerous freefall. Denial was the first sign. Physical signs were also evident. Michael's story is not unique. The confluence between midlife crisis and financial crisis is a phenomenon studied by psychologists and economists. Dr. Elizabeth White, an expert in longevity and finance, argues that around age 50, many individuals evaluate their lives and careers, and dissatisfaction can lead to risky financial decisions. It is a period of great vulnerability, where the search for a new purpose can blind people to economic reality. White explains in her book 55, Underemployed and Faking Normal. Federal Reserve data shows that while average net worth in the U.S. increases with age, debt also grows significantly for those in the 45 to 54 age range, driven by mortgages, children's student loans, and the desire to maintain a certain lifestyle. Another common cause of bankruptcy in the U.S., especially for this age group, is the lack of a robust emergency fund. Michael didn't have one. His layoff was unexpected, but even before that, his savings were minimal. Many, tired of the corporate routine, see a new business as the solution to their existential and financial problems. However, a lack of market research, a solid business plan, and adequate working capital are recipes for disaster. Although Michael was healthy, many in midlife face unexpected medical expenses that can drain their savings. The American healthcare system, with its high costs, can lead families into bankruptcy, even with insurance. The combination of a midlife crisis, poor financial decisions, and an unexpected health event truly creates the perfect storm. The Small Business Administration points out that around 20% of small businesses close in their first year of operation, and 50% don't make it to their fifth year. Passion without strategy is a huge risk. Michael, blinded by the desire for a new life, neglected all crucial steps for a successful venture, as his focus was on a comfortable life and investing in his son's future. A 2023 Bankrate report revealed that only 43% of Americans can cover a $1,000 emergency with their savings. The absence of this safety net turns any setback, like job loss or unexpected illness, into a financial catastrophe. Michael, by using all his savings for an unplanned business, eliminated any margin for error. Impulsive entrepreneurship is another trap. Health issues also pose an invisible threat. Michael's turning point came when he finally hit rock bottom. His bank account was empty, and an eviction notice for the office he had rented forced him to face reality. The first and most difficult step was admitting the problem and seeking help. He opened up to Sarah, his ex-wife, who, despite their separation, still cared about him. It was Sarah who suggested Michael see a financial counselor specializing in debt recovery. Although reluctant, he scheduled the first appointment. The counselor, David Chen, a veteran in financial restructuring in New York. With his design skills, he took on some low-cost freelance jobs, using online platforms. It wasn't much, but every extra dollar made a difference. He also temporarily considered a part-time job, even if it wasn't in his field, to cover basic expenses. The humility in accepting jobs outside his comfort zone was an important step towards recovery. Michael realized that bankruptcy wasn't the end, but a painful opportunity to rebuild his financial life on a stronger foundation. Began with a painful but necessary exercise, listing all debts and expenses. Michael had avoided this task for months, but the clarity of the numbers was a shock. He owed over $50,000 in credit card debt. Michael, once ashamed, learned to call credit card companies and banks, explaining his situation and seeking more flexible payment plans. In some cases, he managed to reduce interest rates and set up installments that fit his new tight budget. The fear of facing creditors was immense, but David encouraged him, reminding him that banks prefer to receive a portion of the debt rather than lose everything. Proactive negotiation can prevent legal bankruptcy and protect one's credit history, in addition to personal loans and the debts from his failed business. David helped him create a strict budget, cutting all non-essential expenses. The office rent was canceled, and Michael started working from home. Restaurants were replaced by homemade meals, and his car, a luxury he could no longer afford, was sold. This stage of sacrifice and discipline is crucial for anyone looking to get out of the red. Next, David guided him to negotiate with creditors. Still under David's guidance, Michael began to look for alternative sources of income. Michael's experience with bankruptcy taught him a hard but valuable lesson: the importance of financial literacy. Before his crisis, he believed that knowing how to make money was enough. The idea of managing, investing, and protecting his capital was never a priority. He realized that his expensive car and credit card debts were liabilities that drained his money, while the savings he had invested in the unplanned business were, in fact, a high-risk investment that became a liability. Understanding these basic terms helped him reevaluate his previous financial decisions. He also delved into the concept of budgeting and expense tracking. Previously, he just paid bills and hoped money would be left over. Now, he created categories for each expense, using a finance app to record every cent. This visibility allowed him to identify where his money was going and where he could save even more. David Chun, the financial counselor, emphasized that knowledge is the first line of defense against future financial problems. It's like learning to ride a bike, David explained. You might fall a few times, but once you learn, the skill stays with you. Michael began reading books on personal finance, following specialized blogs, and attending free webinars. One of the first concepts Michael learned was the difference between assets and liabilities. Another pillar of financial literacy that Michael adopted was the emergency fund. After having all his savings depleted, he understood the urgency of building a reserve for unforeseen circumstances. The initial goal was to accumulate the equivalent of 3 to 6 months of basic expenses in a separate, easily accessible account, but untouchable for routine spending, making it difficult to access loans and even rent an apartment. He educated himself on how to rebuild his credit by making on-time payments, using credit cards responsibly, and monitoring his credit report regularly. Financial literacy wasn't just about numbers. It was about a change in mindset. Michael went from a person who saw money as something to be spent to someone who saw it as a tool to build a more secure and stable future. This financial cushion would provide security and prevent him from falling into the same trap again. The discipline of saving, even if small amounts, each month became a new habit. Michael also learned about the importance of credit and how to maintain it healthy. His credit score had plummeted with the business bankruptcy. With his finances stabilized and a new mindset, Michael began to explore strategies to increase his income and make his money work for him. The freelance work he had taken on during the crisis became a more consistent source of extra income. He honed his graphic and web design skills and started using platforms like Upwork and Fiverr to find clients. The advantage was flexibility and the ability to work on various projects, which helped him rediscover his passion for his field without the pressure of a full-time job. The gig economy, as it's known, offers significant opportunities for those seeking to supplement their income, instead of putting all his eggs in one basket. As he had done with his failed business, he spread his investments across different asset classes, such as stocks, bonds, and, to a lesser extent, real estate. This approach minimizes risk and protects capital in case of fluctuations in a specific sector. Michael's experience illustrates that even after a bankruptcy, it is possible to rebuild one's financial life with intelligence and strategy, transforming past mistakes into valuable lessons for a more prosperous future. With millions of Americans engaged in project-based or part-time work. In addition to freelance work, Michael explored other sources of passive income. He had a spare room in a Chicago apartment and decided to rent it out through Airbnb. At first, he hesitated, but the extra monthly income was substantial and helped cover some of his housing expenses. This short-term rental strategy has become popular in major American cities, providing an effective way to monetize underutilized assets. When he felt more financially secure, with an emergency fund established and debts under control, Michael started thinking about smart investments. David Chun warned him about the risks of get-rich-quick schemes and guided him toward a long-term approach. He began with low-risk investments, such as diversified exchange-traded funds, which track the stock market but with lower volatility. The idea was to build wealth gradually, without risky bets. He also invested in his continuing education, taking online courses to stay updated in his field, which increased his value in the job market and his chances of getting more profitable projects. Michael also learned about investment diversification. Michael's financial recovery was not a one-time event, but a continuous process of learning and adaptation. He understood that building a sustainable future required more than just paying off debts and saving. It required maintaining a mindset of continuous growth and learning. Every month, he reviewed his budget. Now, with David Chun's help, he began contributing regularly to a retirement account, such as a 401 or an IRA. Even though he started late, the power of compound interest could still make a significant difference over time. He also learned about the importance of rebalancing his investment portfolio periodically, adjusting asset allocation according to his age and risk tolerance, adjusted his expenses, and evaluated his investments. This discipline helped him avoid the old habits that led him to crisis. He became a proponent of financial health. He reviewed his insurance policies, health, life, and disability, to ensure he was adequately covered in case of serious illness or accident. The crisis taught him that life is unpredictable, and having the right protections is essential to prevent a single event from destroying years of financial effort. He also spoke with Sarah about a long-term plan for their son's college expenses, ensuring the boy wouldn't have to take on overwhelming debt. A concept that encompasses not only the amount of money, but also the ability to manage, plan, and achieve financial goals without excessive stress. He began giving voluntary talks at community centers in Chicago, sharing his story and offering practical tips on financial literacy. This not only helped him process his own experience, but also gave him a new sense of purpose. He discovered that true financial security isn't just about what you have, but about how you manage what you have and how you use that wisdom to build a fuller, more resilient life. One of the pillars of his sustainable future was retirement planning. At 50, Michael had completely neglected this area. Michael also made sure to protect his future against unforeseen circumstances. Finally, Michael embraced the idea of giving back to the community and helping others avoid the mistakes he made. Michael's journey was a testament to human resilience and the power of transforming a crisis into an opportunity. Years after the red alert, he was not only financially stable, but also wiser and more conscious of his choices. His consulting business, now focused and with a solid business plan, was thriving. He had learned that success is not linear and that failure can be a strict but effective teacher. The wisdom gained on his journey was his greatest asset. The midlife crisis, once a source of anguish, became a period of deep reflection and redefinition. Michael realized that the changes in his personal and professional life, though painful, were catalysts for personal growth. He developed a new relationship with money, seeing it not as an end in itself, but as a tool to achieve freedom and security. His marriage to Sarah, though not rekindled, found a new foundation of respect and friendship, and his relationship with his son strengthened, based on honesty and transparency about his experiences. Michael's story echoes that of many Americans facing financial challenges amidst life transitions. The expert's advice is unanimous. Preparation, education, and the humility to seek help are the keys to navigating these storms. A crisis does not have to be the end of the line, but rather a turning point, a chance to reevaluate, learn, and build a stronger future. Michael, who once stood on the brink, now walks with confidence, aware that true wealth lies not just in a bank account, but in the ability to get up after a fall, more resilient and with the wisdom of one who has already overcome the perfect storm.